Think about the last time you bought a lovely bouquet of flowers or took a walk through a pine forest. Did you ever stop to wonder if you were looking at a boy plant or a girl plant? The answer to "do plants have genders" is a resounding yes, but also a definitive no, followed by a very chaotic "it depends." Welcome to the wildest dating pool on Earth. If you think human relationships are complicated, wait until you see what is happening in your garden. To understand plant sex, we first have to talk about flowers, which are essentially a plant's elaborate, brightly colored matchmaking devices. Biologists call roughly 80% of all flowering plants perfect, or hermaphroditic. This means a single flower contains both the male parts, called stamens, which produce pollen, and the female parts, called carpels, which house the eggs. Roses, lilies, tomatoes, and sunflowers are all part of this all-in-one club. They don't need to find a partner down the street because everything required to make a seed is packed into one neat, fragrant little package. Because these perfect flowers are so self-contained, they have developed some ingenious ways to reproduce. A tomato plant, for example, often relies on a process called buzz pollination. A bumblebee lands on the flower and vibrates its flight muscles at a specific musical frequency, like a biological tuning fork, which literally shakes the pollen out of the male chambers directly onto the female tip. Other perfect flowers try hard to avoid inbreeding. A lily might mature its male pollen-producing parts a few days before its female parts open up, ensuring that it only accepts pollen brought by bees traveling from an entirely different lily down the road. But what about the plants that keep things separated? Enter the monoecious plants, a fancy Greek word that translates to one house. These plants decide that having both genders in the exact same flower is a bit too crowded. Instead, they grow entirely separate male flowers and female flowers, but keep them on the very same plant. Corn is a perfect example of this. The tassely part at the very top of a cornstalk is actually a cluster of male flowers, while the ears lower down are the female flowers. Reproducing in one house is usually an engineering feat heavily reliant on physics. Corn doesn't bother hiring bees or butterflies, it trusts the wind. When the breeze blows, millions of pollen grains rain down from the top tassels. To catch this drifting dust, the female ear of corn deploys hundreds of sticky, long hairs called silks. Every single silk is connected to an unfertilized kernel. For you to get a full, juicy cob of corn on your dinner plate, a drifting grain of wind-blown pollen must land on every single individual silk hair. Then we have the true traditionalists of the botanical kingdom, the dioecious plants, which means two houses. For these species, a single plant is either entirely male or entirely female, period. If you want to grow berries on a female holly bush or a female kiwi vine, you absolutely must plant a male version nearby, or you will get zero fruit. Ginkgo trees and cannabis also follow this strict rule. In fact, if you walk around a city and notice certain trees are making a massive mess with stinky fruits or dropping a ridiculous amount of pollen, you are looking at a city planning fail that forgot to balance the male and female tree populations. Dating between two completely separate houses requires some heavy lifting by third-party delivery services. Take the wild fig tree, for instance. Its reproduction cycle relies on a highly exclusive contract with a microscopic creature called a fig wasp. The female wasp must squeeze inside a female fig to lay her eggs, inadvertently carrying pollen from a male fig tree she visited earlier. It is an intense evolutionary pact. No wasp, no pollen transport, no fig tree, no place for the wasp to give birth. Just when you think you have a handle on it, nature throws a curveball with gender-fluid plants. There are species that can actually switch their gender back and forth based on how stressed they are. Take the jack-in-the-pulpit, a strange-looking woodland plant. When it is young, small, and low on energy reserves, it behaves strictly as a male because making pollen is relatively cheap and easy. But once it grows big, strong, and gathers plenty of nutrients, it flips the genetic switch and becomes a female to handle the high-energy task of growing heavy berries. When it comes to reproduction, these shapeshifters play the long game. If a deer comes by and chomps its leaves off, stressing it out and draining its energy, the plant evaluates its internal bank account and realizes it can no longer afford to produce seeds. The following spring, it will actually switch right back to being a male. By constantly shifting roles, the plant ensures it reproduces as efficiently as possible, acting as a mother when times are prosperous, and taking a break as a pollen provider when times are tough. Why did evolution allow plants to create such a messy, complicated spectrum of genders? It all comes down to one goal: genetic diversity. Because plants are literally rooted to the ground and cannot walk to a bar to meet someone, they have had to engineer mind-blowing ways to mix up their DNA. Whether they are packing both genders into a single petal, dividing them up into separate flowers, splitting into entirely different trees, or changing sex on the fly, they are all just trying to survive a changing world. Thanks for watching, and don't forget to subscribe.